Partnering for profit that's what it's all about nowadays. The days of being a lone ranger in the world of business, they're pretty much over, and we have the advent of social media to thank for all of this, because it's become so easy now for people to link together, tie together, and align with other people of common thought. And the days of community being where you live they're coming to an end, because people don't interact personally as much anymore. They're interacting through the media, through the computer, through the internet. And so communities of today are communities built around common thoughts, common feelings, common interests, common values. Today, for example, I have meetings with people all over the world via the internet, and the one thing I can tell you about the people that I tend to communicate with is we all harmonize on a common frequency, and we tend to have the same interests, the same goals, the same values. And so the world today is being configured very differently than it was years ago. And what that means is that there are new opportunities that exist today. There are new ways of reaching these new communities today, new ways of interacting with them and turning them into profitable business. But you can't do it alone, really, because the world is now no longer built on the lone entrepreneur with a sword in his hand, riding into the horizon, slaying the dragons. That's not the way it's done anymore. Today it's about partnerships, it's about teaming with other people, it's about extending yourself and leveraging yourself through the contact base and resources of other people. And the good news is that today's media makes that relatively easy. So once you get it, that's the way to grow. That's the way you expand your sphere of influence. So the next question is, okay, what business models can help you monetize this, so that you can convert these realities of today into structures and strategies and systems and methods that make money for you? And the first of these models include joint ventures and why they're so powerful and how you use them. I mean, joint ventures are they're really a simple concept. You're the entity, and there are other entities out there that do things that run parallel to you, similar to you, contrary to you. It doesn't really matter. They're running somewhere. But invariably, in many cases, they're what you might call a nexus. And a nexus is a point of contact where you have an overlap in which you're serving your client or customer and the other party is serving their client or customer. Now, the way the relationships work today is people don't like doing business with strangers. They don't like doing business with people they don't know. They would much prefer to be introduced, and they would much prefer a warm, friendly introduction as opposed to a cold, impersonal approach. So that being the case with respect to human nature, it really is incumbent upon people who are in business to look at where they would have a nexus of their client with the clients of other people in similar, parallel, complementary, even contrary businesses, because there's always these points of nexus. So when I meet anybody in business today that has anything to do with the kind of business I'm in, the first thing that I do once I have a comfort factor with these people is I explore with them where those points of nexus are, where it is that my client could become their client, where it is that my customer could become their customer, and vice versa. And then once you identify that nexus point, that place where there's an overlap, that place where there's the opening or opportunity of an introduction from our company to them, from our people to their people, then I want to know what that nexus is. And then we start to look at how we can translate that nexus into something that makes money for both of us. So let's say, for example, that I have an estate agency, and I list my clients' homes for sale, and it doesn't take me much to ask my clients, okay, why are you putting up your house for sale, and where are you going? And then once I know where they're going, I know they're going to have to buy a house in that area. So I have a potential nexus with an estate agent who operates in that area, and let that estate agent know that my client is going to be coming to their area, and then I introduce my client to that broker, that agent, and I now have an opportunity to earn a fee not only from when they sell the house, but from when a share of the income that they create for the party who I've introduced them to, who's going to help them find a house to buy. And I can introduce them to a moving company, I can introduce them to certain financial organizations and appraisal organizations that can help them evaluate the house and help in the process of selling the house, remodeling the house if they need to remodel it. So now, I just don't want to do this as a one-off. I don't want to put in all that energy just on one example introduction. What I then do is I form joint ventures with each of these people, like mini partnerships. And then I say, okay, when I refer somebody to you, you're going to pay me X. And when you make a sale, when you refer somebody to me, I'm going to pay you X. And when I make a sale, and then you try and formalize this with a little letter of an agreement that says you're each going to make a concerted effort to make these referrals on an ongoing basis. And once you have this process in place, then you have to nurture it. You nurture it, which means you constantly reach out to these people and massage the relationship, so that everybody has front of mind that this is an agreement that they've made and that you've all agreed to work together. After people start making money with each other in this process, what happens is they all start to become very proactive in the process. And it's real simple, that you're not going to give up any control of your business. What you're doing is you're expanding it out. But let's take this a few more steps further, just to start to see how we can expand the concept. Because joint venturing and partnering is not just an add-on to your business. When you engage in periodically, it should be a core part of your thinking process. How can you use partnering, joint venturing to radically expand your business? Because it's that powerful of a tool. So it's not something that you just occupy a neglected corner of your brain. You really need to pull this to the front of your mind and start thinking creatively of how you can use this. Let's give an example. Let's say that I have a certain type of service business that provides a series of services to a client. Now, it doesn't matter what the business is. My service base, because of my in-house expertise, has certain limitations to it, meaning, say, I'm an expert in so many ways of an aspect of a particular field, and so my ability to service my client it's somewhat limited in that area. So, I mean, you don't have to stay in that arena. You can broaden your service base through joint ventures and partnerships. So, for example, if you give a certain type of business, certain type of service, say, but the clients that you call in, that call in on you at the same time, that they have that particular expertise, they also need additional expertise that you don't have. Well, you can joint venture with somebody else. You can joint venture with them and provide for that client a service that you don't provide. And this is how you can start to expand your own capacity to deliver your own product and service base by having joint ventures. Now, one of the things that I try to tell people, especially in today's economy, the enemy of profit, and it really pays to write this down, the enemy of profit is fixed overhead. Now, why is the enemy of profit fixed overhead? Well, it's because at any given time in business, there can be downturns. They can be temporary, they can be short-term, long-term, or they can be semi-permanent. In other words, like the one we had in 2007 and 2008. And if you're locked into a fixed overhead, all of a sudden you go from profit to break even to loss, and maybe even to big loss, and possibly out of business very quickly. So the enemy of profit in business success today is fixed overhead. So why am I taking the time to emphasize this? Well, I'm taking the time because the more fixed overhead you can eliminate from your business, the more sustainable your business is through good times and bad times. So the idea is to turn as much of your overhead as possible into variable overhead that varies with the amount of business that you have to conduct. That is another function of joint ventures. That's another form of outsourcing, in other words. Outsourcing, if you think about it, is a form of joint venture. It's a form of partnering with somebody else where when you need them, you rely on their resources, but when you don't need them, you're not paying the overhead. So one of the structural benefits of learning how to joint venture and partner with people is the ability to reduce your fixed overhead, which makes your business long term much more profitable and more flexible with the ups and downs of the crazy economies that we tend to have in this current period. So that's another whole advantage. The way in which your business is structured is a more sustainable business, and more like you've learnt to rely on joint ventures and to outsource things that you're not capable of providing, or the things that you can provide, but now that you're going into a big upturn in business, rather than you build internally and the ability to handle that and build that fixed overhead, you're more flexible. So when the market turns around or slackens off, you're stuck with fixed overhead. You can learn to joint venture and mitigate this, partner with people who can supply for that over purchasing that you're experiencing now, so that when it reduces in future, as with all business cycles, you're not stuck with the fixed overhead. So that's another whole advantage for thinking in terms of partnering and in terms of joint ventures. Now, one of the things when I talk about joint ventures with people is that they always say to me, well, you know, Alfred, if I get all these new sales through joint ventures, I've got to have more inventory, I've got to have more facilities, I've got to have more trucks, I've got to have more whatever, and that takes capital, and I don't have the cash. So even if I were to do these joint ventures and get all of these additional sales, it would mean that I need capital to expand my business, and I don't have it. Okay, well, I'm going to introduce to you one of my quick answers for everybody on how you can create immediate cash in your business to handle these kinds of increases, these kinds of needs for capital they're easy, they're quick, and very efficient to form. And I'm going to introduce you to some new words that you may never have heard before, but it's basically called cash on cash investors. What does that mean? Well, cash on cash means they don't get a piece of your business. They don't get any of your equity. They're not a bank. They don't make a loan. They are people who are going to invest in your business, but not in equity. They're going to invest so that they get a return on their cash. So for example, let's say you know that you've got a project that's going to require a certain amount of cash to get the project going, but the project will produce a certain cash flow because you've done the paperwork. You know why you're borrowing the money, why you need this cash on cash investor. So now you have a project, you have £100,000, and you know that over the next 3 months to 5 months that project is going to return £250,000 to you in income. The fact that you have the £100,000 in cash, well, you need it from this investor. So instead of borrowing the money from the bank, say, who won't loan it to you, instead of trying to find an investor in your business, a traditional investor who looks at your business and says, oh, you know, I don't want to take that risk with you, and then all I own is the paper, like your stock certificates in your company, what good is all that to me? Instead of that, you show this person, well, look, here's my project, here's the amount of income that I'm going to generate on that £100,000, here's my test. And this is an important part of that. Here's my test where I took £10,000 or 5,000 and I ran this model, and as a result of that, I know that when I put £100,000 into this, I'm going to replicate this test, but now at a £100,000 level, and that's going to produce £250,000 cash for you over the next 5 months. So when you invest your £100,000 with me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the first £100,000 of profit that comes back on this deal. I'll give that to you, so you're going to have your money back in about 2 months. Then I'm going to give you 10% or 20% of all the money that comes in after that. So on your £100,000 investment, you're going to make a cash on cash return of £50,000 profit. Now, I'm making these numbers up. They could be any numbers that make sense, but the point of the matter is that this investor now doesn't care about the success of your overall business. They're not concerned about your credit rating. All the profit is going to be structured, by the way, to go into what's called a secure account, a lockbox at the bank. So every time money comes in from the sale or whatever it is, these things are, the money goes into a lockbox so that it's secure from both parties, really. So now when the investor puts up their £100,000 and the money comes in, the first money that has come back to them, so their risk is practically zero. Their return on £50,000 on a £100,000 in 6 months is, well, you can figure it out. It's like 100% return on their money on an annual basis, or approximately. But now for £150,000, you have made the £100,000 profit on the other side for yourself. So these are approximate numbers. I just want you to get the concept, okay? So the cash on cash investor does not need to worry about the success of your business model, only that your project works, which you have given up demonstrable cash for. So, well, here's another scenario you can use, like involving a cash on cash investor, and it's also a great demonstration on getting a great return on your money. And I'm going to use the word widget here for a product, so that we don't disturb anybody's business model out there who really can benefit from this. So here's how it basically works. Let's say, for example, that you want to do a sales campaign on widgets, okay? And to have an inventory of widgets for the sale, you've got to go out and spend £50,000 to bring in your inventory. So let's say to sell that inventory after you did your test, which you did on maybe a few £100 worth of pay-per-click adverts, you know that if you spend £10,000 on pay-per-click ads, that you're going to be able to sell that £50,000 of inventory. The sale price is going to be £120,000, and you're going to be to make your profit at the end of that, you're going to be spending £60,000, and you're going to make £60,000 profit if you go out and do this pay-per-click campaign. Well, you've got the inventory all ready to go, but it takes £60,000 to put this all together. So basically, you would have your cash on cash investor put up £60,000 for the project. Now, the way you would structure the deal with them, and this is the only one way to do it's not that there's only one way to do this. This is one way that it's been done, but there are many ways you can do it. So again, the important thing is just the concept here. Basically, you've got £60,000 that the investor is going to put up. Okay, so what you give the investor, you tell the investor, okay, you say, look, we're going to run this campaign. I'm going to buy this inventory for £50,000. I'm going to spend £10,000 on pay-per-click adverts based on my test, and that's going to produce £120,000 worth of sales, and I'm going to make a £60,000 profit on that. And when that happens, when the product sells, I don't have my £60,000. So if you, my investor, supply the £60,000, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a lockbox, secure account at a bank, and all the proceeds from the sales that we create are going into this lockbox. So you don't have to trust me. It's all going to go in there, and it's all going to be set up when you come on. So now when you put up your £60,000, that is going to buy £50,000 worth of inventory, and it's going to pay for £10,000 of pay-per-click ads, and then we're going to sell £120,000. We're going to do £120,000 in revenue, and the first £70,000 that hits that lockbox, that secure account, that goes to you, the investor. So you're guaranteed right up front, you're going to get £10,000 profit on your £60,000 investment. Okay, so the first £70,000 in, you get it all. Now, the inventory, remember, has been paid off, the pay-per-click ads have all been paid for, and now when the rest of the sales come in, there's the balance of that 60,000 profit. So we've paid £10,000 of the profit to the cash on cash buyer, so we've got £50,000 of profit left. And here's where your deal making skills come in. The cash on cash investor already got a £10,000 profit. You've got £50,000 that you've made, and so of that you may be splitting back with them as the real heavy duty incentive to get them to do this. So you might split that 40% or 30%, let's say, to the cash on cash investor. So if they get another £15,000 from that profit, you deduct that from the 50,000 of the profit, and you are left over with, say, 35,000, and you didn't come up with a penny of that money, and your cash on cash investor just made the £10,000 that he made for sure when the money first came in, that paid his investment and paid back his original profit. The additional 15,000 of profit means he made 25,000 profit on a £60,000 investment, and he's made it within 3 to 4 months. Now that is a heck of a deal for an investor, any investor. The risk is minimal, and you've taken your profit capability that you didn't have the capital to do, and you've turned it into profit. Now, if you have the opportunity to do this again, you're not obligated to that cash on cash investor to do it again with them. You can take your profit and start putting that into the equation so that you can make the entire return on 35,000. So if you're still needing 60,000 to do it, now you're only having to get 25,000 for the next round from a cash on cash investor, and by 2 cycles you've got all the cash you need now to run things on your own without investors at all. So this is an incredibly flexible tool, and it's only as restricted as your imagination. If your imagination is good and you can come up with all kinds of cash on cash deals to make with investors on a project by project basis that give them phenomenal returns and open up phenomenal profit opportunities for you. So it's exciting that people think that it's hard to raise money for their businesses, and if you're trying to get an investor to invest in your business where you don't have any way to get their money back until you sell your company 20 years from now, that's not really exciting for them. I mean, owning paper in your company isn't exciting to them, and going to the bank and trying to get a loan from the bank today isn't exciting for you, because their favorite word is, well, the bank is no. So the whole idea is to have a way that the people out there who have got a little bit of money, who want to put it in a bank account and earn 1% interest per year, they don't want to put it in the stock market, because the stock market's it's in a bubble right now, and everybody kind of has a sense that this bubble's going to break at some point, and the government is going to stop putting money into the economy, and all of a sudden stocks are going to pay, so why take those risks? Why not get a better return than a bank? Do a cash on cash return on my business and you're golden, not burnt and crispy.